quite a number of initiatives, and we have prepared strategies, and we're implementing. By 2030, we will probably be one of the few countries in Africa that will be very close to zero carbon neutrality balance, particularly in industries. So Egypt is going very well in that direction. In parallel with other, as you said, the employment, the sustainability, and under sustainability you get the recycling, the green power generation, whether it's solar power and so on. You know, we have the largest solar power farm in the whole world.
Aswan,
And
yeah.
Aswan, Binyan, and so on. So our initiatives are quite impressive, and I think what needs to be happening is again education. We need very focused educational initiatives into that particular sector. And in terms of funding, I think we are fine. We are collaborating with all sorts of funding partners, United Nations, World Bank, US and EU development banks. And it's not only funding, it's also technology transfer. So I think we're on the right track in that space.
Good to hear. Dr. Abdel, Egypt has ambitious plans to become a regional hub for exporting green hydrogen, and to export 10 million tons of renewable energy, especially to Europe.
Yes.
Your elaboration on that.
Sure. Green hydrogen, maybe a few years ago, nobody heard of green hydrogen.
True.
Now, both Saudi and UAE are competing, and Egypt is probably much better positioned. The largest green hydrogen project is going to come out of Saudi, but you'll be very happy to know that the first country to export green hydrogen and green urea was Egypt in 1950. So we've been there all the time, and we know a lot about this particular industry. Now, technology has changed. We do have the gas, so that's what gives us a lot of advantage to generate the green hydrogen. We do have
the geographical proximity to Europe, naturally.
Yeah. And the infrastructure. I mean, we already share electricity with Europe. I mean, we export electricity to our neighbors in the Levant, Eastern Mediterranean, and very soon to Europe. We have excess capacity in electricity, which is amazing. So we have all the elements, and I think one of the important achievements for our government is putting together the regulatory framework, and that's a very important part of any green economy initiative. You need to have the laws and regulations and the structure and the framework to protect the industry and to encourage users like electric vehicles. The government gives 50,000 Egyptian pounds subsidy to anybody who manufactures an electric vehicle in Egypt. So every vehicle is subsidized by 50,000 Egyptian pounds if you manufacture it here, and that's huge. Power stations and so on. So there's a lot of initiatives that is doing well. United Nations says in a clear statement that in 2050, Egypt will be the second most environmentally friendly economy in the world.
Wow.
Yes, 2050, because we're doing many initiatives, and we take our time to put down the infrastructure and the regulations and the partnerships. But because of our population, education, and serious commitment, this is going to happen. I hope. I mean, that's the United Nations. Yeah.
Inshallah. And how does the state, Dr. Abdel, encourage the private sector to implement clean energy projects? The private sector.
Yes. I guess the clearest sector is the industrial. So in manufacturing, the government is encouraging transformation of machinery and tools and manufacturing infrastructure to be converted into green energy, sustainable resources. Whether it's there are factories now that run off power generated by recycled waste. Others are running on compost. Others are running on solar power. So that's one. Two, I think there is 2 or 3 different bonus, or let's call it subsidies from the government and
incentives,
yes, in the taxation area. So if you're using recycled materials to generate power, for example, you get deductions, tax deductions across a number of sectors in your
Yes.
revenue. Yeah.
And Dr. Absalam, Egypt has signed more than a deal and cooperation protocol with foreign investors to implement friendly environment projects in Egypt. Could you tell us the significance
Yes.
of that?
Investors are mostly motivated by profitability, obviously, and return on their investment, and that's yeah,
It's normal.
exactly. So yes, so the influx
So
of
they see
investors.
Egypt as a good
That's what
buy.
I'm trying to say. Yes, the potential and the strategy and the commitment of both the private sector and the public sector towards achieving the zero emission by 2030, which is the COP27 commitment, is very encouraging for investors. Having said that, we do have specific advantages. So we have the extra pure quartz, the sands in Sinai. Everybody knows about that, the white sands. These are extremely important for the
Glass,
microchip. No, microchip,
microchip.
the electronics. Yes, the Koreans are very keen on this. So the government is developing the black sand, as you know. The new black sand discoveries in the Western Desert. So our environment keeps giving us, our nature keeps giving us more opportunities, and that's what attracts investors.
Yes. And Dr. Absalam, Egypt is pressing forward with many renewable energy projects to reduce climate change. Could you tell us some examples of these
Sure.
renewable energy
Sure.
projects?
We all know about the solar power in Banyan and Aswan, the largest in the world. Uh, the good news is we are actually manufacturing the panels. So all the panels there are manufactured in Egypt, and that's great because how do we compete with China? Actually, we do in terms of quality and cost in solar power panels. So that's great. Solar power, recycling. So we have a number of well-established Egyptian local companies now in recycling and sorting, recycling, energy generation from waste. We do have existing industries in Egypt now, encouraged by the public sector. In terms of the public sector, the statewide projects such as transportation. Around 75% of our funding in renewable energy goes into transportation. So green transportation is quite a focus for the state, for the public sector. So yeah, that's few of the initiatives or the existing projects that Egypt is doing.
And we're doing it in many governorates, right? It's not just focused on one specific geographical area. It's scattered around the country.
Yes.
Recently, Dr. Mahmoud Muhyiddin, the UN Climate Change High Level Champion for Egypt, said that the projects of national initiatives for smart and green projects in Egypt have attracted national banks and international development finance institutions to participate in their financing and implementation. Your intake on that,
Sure.
sir?
Absolutely. We have a number of international funding partners involved, like the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, a couple of United Nations agencies as well, World Bank, of course, and Asian Development Bank, and others. The significance of such partnerships is that does not stop at financial funding. It more importantly, it extends into technology transfer. So our partnership with GIZ, GIZ, which is the German International Development Agency, means that a lot of the technologies that Germany has developed, Germany generates more than 45% of its power from renewable sources by now. So by 2030, everybody else will aiming at that. Germany is aiming at 2025. So that's how advanced they have been. So we're working very closely with Germany, with US, and obviously, yes, as you said, it's all across Egypt. Actually, the local governance, the Ministry of Hukm Mahalli, the
Local development,
local
local
development,
administration, and
local
development. Yeah.
administration, that ministry in particular has a budget on its own. So every project that extends in outside Cairo or Alexandria or the big suburban or the big centers gets funded by that particular budget to expand and extend into recycling. I go to my hometown like every couple of months, and I can see a lot of the
Where is your hometown?
Monofia.
Okay.
Yes,
Where in Munufaya?
Tala.
Okay.
Yes, and I can see having been there occasionally is there's change. Sorting. A lot of households now sort their house waste into glass, aluminium cans, and so on. Why? Because the collectors come in different. They aim at collecting certain items, not everything, because that's their contract. So it's yes, it's probably motivated by business, by pure business, but when you go up a couple of levels, you see that private sector companies have actually commissioned collectors and sorters at every level to collect aluminum cans, glass waste, paper, and so on. And it's quite a good economy. It's a significant economy. Yes, it keeps everything clean. It helps everybody understand what the environment is, and people can make money. So it's getting there.
Finally, Dr. Abdel, why should sustainable development go side by side with friendly environment business?
Yes, business is motivated by profits. Longer term, sustainability, as we discussed in COP27, is not a choice. Environmentally friendly choices, it's not a choice anymore. We've seen it. You know, today it's 36. Yesterday it was 26 degrees in Cairo, and we all feel it. So there's no turning back. Uh, Going green in terms of economic development is not n- why, it's when. So if you're in the early adapters, you're on top of the game, and you probably can feed off the advanced economies that have got the technology. If you wait and if you decide that this is just another fad or anything, you're not going to survive as a business.
Yes. And the good thing is that we're not waiting.
No.
We have been one of the early adapters.
I'm not saying we are, but I'm saying it's a very wise choice, and we are probably on top of our game. We started in 1950, as I said.
No.
We have been doing green urea since 1950 using green power. So we've
All
been
right.
there. We're there.
We'll leave it there. And on that note, dear viewers, we thank on behalf of you very much, Dr. Hesham Abdel, the Economic Development
Thank you.
Advisor. Great pleasure having you with us, sir. And dear viewers, please stay with us. Nile Cruise will be back. Don't go away.